Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and start in just a few moments here. We'll allow some time for people to start joining.
Kelly and Amelia, thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Is this streaming live on YouTube?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Thanks, Amelia. I didn't know. Probably better that way, but it's okay. That's good. You all have a YouTube channel.
Yes, so if any of you might have missed the last couple minutes, we'll go ahead and share that link to our YouTube channel where this recording along with others is available. For time purposes, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us in our next Getting to Contracts session. Today, we're talking about criteria for certification as a disadvantaged business enterprise. So we're going to talk about the process of certification. Today, we have two special guests, Kelly Adams, who is the DBE Certification Program Manager, and Amelia Martinez, who is the DBE Certification Specialist over at ADOT. So appreciate your time today for both of you. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. We will go ahead and answer some questions at the end if time permits. And then we'll also share the recording of today's session in our post-event email. So please be on the lookout for that. With that being said, I will go ahead and hand it off to Kelly to kick off today's presentation. So once again, we really appreciate it and thank you for your time.
And good morning, and thank everyone for coming and showing up for the information about DBE certification. Again, like she said, I'm Kelly Adams, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, if you're not sure what the DBE program is, then the DBE program is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, and it is through the Federal Highway Authority, and it's based on Part 4923 of the CFR. And basically, there are two different parts to it. There's the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and there's the Airport Concessions Enterprise Program. And in Arizona, there are three agencies that review and certify firms that are applying for DBE certification. And those firms are called the AZUCP, and it's comprised of the City of Tucson, the City of Phoenix, and Arizona Department of Transportation. And basically, depending on where you reside, that is how we determine which agency is going to handle your certification process. And although it's not on this slide, we use a system or program called B2G Now. And if you reside in Pima County, then you're going to be applying with the City of Tucson. And if you're also in Maricopa County, you're going to apply with the City of Phoenix. And anytime you want to apply as an airport concessionaire, then you're going to have to apply through the City of Phoenix. And ADOT is responsible for all other firms located outside of Maricopa or Pima County, and that also we handle the interstate DBE certifications except for ACDBEs. And an interstate certification are companies that are certified in their home state or other states, and they want to come and do business in Arizona. When you initially want to look into becoming a DBE, there's just a few things that criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify to apply for certification. First is that DBEs cannot be nonprofits. We get this question a lot. It has to be a for-profit company, and it must also have an existing small business as defined by the SBA. Sorry about that. And your personal net worth is reviewed. It has to be 1.32 million or less. So these are like initial and basic qualifiers for you to be eligible to participate in the DBE program. So basically, the individual firm has already been established, is for profit, and each individual who is relied upon for DBE certification has a personal net worth of less than 1.2 million, then you are eligible to apply for DBE certification. So this is just good information to have so that you wouldn't, if you didn't meet these criteria, then you would not be able to apply, or, because the process can be long and tedious, and we like to have people have the information to know what are the requirements before they start applying for the program. And again, the DBE program is based off of the 49 Code of Federal Regulations. And there are different parts that basically give you the criteria and guidance for the different areas that we have to look at as certifying agencies to make our determination as to whether or not you meet the criteria. One of them is the group membership or individual disadvantage. The other is business size, ownership, and control. And we're just gonna go over each of these areas briefly. So who is considered or presumed to be members of the groups that qualify as individuals that are disadvantaged? They are women, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, subcontinent Asian Americans, and other minorities found to be disadvantaged by the SBA. So if you fall within those groups, then you are presumed to be, an individual that's disadvantaged as it relates to this program. So if you are not a member or cannot demonstrate membership to one of these groups, you would have to prove that you're socially disadvantaged. And, we have had people apply for this before. So basically, it would be on the individual to give us evidence and show us how they've been discriminated against and are disadvantaged, even if they are not in the group that was listed on the previous page. So this is done on an individual. This is done on an individual basis. So, but the preponderance of the evidence is on them to prove that they meet this criteria, since it is not listed in the general criteria section. And each owner, as far as economic disadvantage goes, they cannot have a personal net worth of more than 1.32 million. And here's some of the factors that we go into reviewing and establishing what their personal net worth is. We exclude from that the ownership in the firm that's seeking to be certified. So if you're, let's say your company you know, whatever the worth of that is, we will not count that against your personal net worth when we're calculating what your personal net worth is to meet the standard. We do not count the equity in your primary residence. We don't count total value of existing pensions, your individual retirement accounts, 401ks, or other retirement savings or investment programs. Only the value of these assets can be counted after tax and interest penalties have been applied. So basically, what that means to you is that you won't get excluded from the program if your equity in your home that you live in, or your the business that you're applying for, we don't count that against you. So sometimes people get confused about that. You know, I've gotten a lot of questions, and they ask about their residence, and that doesn't count against you when we count your personal net worth. Social and economic disadvantage status. Basically, we require, or really the federal government, because the program is a federal program, that you sign and notarize attesting to the information that you're presenting to us. So when you apply for certification, you know, just be aware that whatever information you submit to us, it has to be notarized, and that you are agreeing that the information is true and accurate. And according to the regulations, attesting to being economically disadvantaged can be rebutted in 2 ways. And that's with your personal net worth statement. Supporting documents show that the personal net worth exceeds 1.32 million, or a personal net worth statement and supporting documents that demonstrate that the individual is able to accumulate substantial wealth. So as the company applying, you're attesting that you meet the criteria. But what can happen sometimes is people can, you know, rebut that you are disadvantaged. And when that happens, that means we have to do another thorough review of the documentation that you submitted about your personal net worth, and just make sure that it does actually meet the standard. And if you have any questions, we're going to answer any questions at the end, because I think I'm going a little faster than I normally go. So please just make sure you're putting your questions in the chat if I'm explaining something that you're not understanding. So, and the other thing is, because, you know, I came from a different state, and they can, another firm or a community stakeholder can challenge some of your information, and that will cause us to have to do a review. And that's basically what this slide is talking about. You're attesting that you meet the criteria, but someone could report in a third-party challenge that, you know, that you don't meet the criteria, or they are assuming that you don't, and we would have to look into it. Some factors for you to consider are about accumulating substantial wealth. One thing that we, you know, more than previously look at now is the last 3-year period. And if your adjusted gross income for the owner continually exceeds that amount, then that can, you know, be looked at or looked into as it relates to you're able to accumulate substantial wealth. And are you a candidate to be a graduate of the program and not still participating in the program? Is the income unusual or not likely to occur in the future? And basically that means, like, if you made in one of the 3 years, you know, more money than you've made in, let's say, the past 5 or 3 years. So we, you know, these are just some of the things that we consider before we make a determination about whether or not you have the ability to accumulate substantial wealth and whether or not you would still meet the criteria to continue participating in the program as a DBE. Were the earnings offset by losses? Whether the income was reinvested in the firm or used to pay taxes. Other evidence that income is not indicative of lack. Sorry. If I touch it softly, it goes away. And whether total fair market value of the owner's assets exceeds $6 million. So if the P&W is contested, the burden lies with the certifying agency to prove their case. So when you turn in your paperwork and your information, it's just up to us to do our due diligence to make sure we're reviewing everything. And sometimes it's just, you turn the information into us and we just want to make sure that we are being accurate and clear about everything that you submitted. So the burden of proof at that time, though, if we are saying, so once you're certified in the program, if 3 years from now, if you meet some of these criteria and you've exceeded $350,000 over a 3-year period, then we could contest it, but we would have to have enough evidence to show that you don't meet the criteria. It's not something you would not have to prove that you still meet the criteria. We would have to then prove that you don't. And this is just our form where you have to get it notarized and sign, attesting that all of the information that you submitted to us is accurate and valid. And there are 2 standards that govern the size of firms seeking DBE certification. They must meet the current SBA size standard, and that is found in the Code of Federal Regulation, and that they are applicable to the type of work the firm can perform. And basically, when you get certified in NAICS codes, depending on, and basically that's just a list of scopes of work. So some scopes of work, though the size standard varies depending upon the scopes of work. So that's just something too, you'd have to make sure that you fall within that category of not exceeding the size standard for whatever scope of work your firm performs. And you must not exceed a 3-year gross receipt average of $26.2 million, and that's regardless of your SBA size standard. So again, if you have questions about this, you can put them in the chat. Ownership. Any DBE firm must be 51% owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. And again, that would be the individuals listed on the first page, listed under I think it was the second slide, women and different minority groups. So they have to have 51% ownership of the firm. That's the first thing. And also they must own at least 51% of each class of voting stock and 51% of the aggregate of all outstanding stock. The firm is a partnership, then they must own 51% of each class of partnership, and it must be reflected in the firm's partnership agreement. If the firm is a limited liability company, then they must own at least 51% of each class of member interest. And this information is important because when you're structuring your firm, sometimes the voting stock or the information that was reported to, for example, the Corporation Commission, if it does not say what this slide says, but you're reporting to us that you're 51% owner, then 51% ownership, you should also meet these additional criteria for how your company is set up and structured. Next is the ownership must be real and substantial. It basically, it has to be more than just on paper. For example, we have sometimes where in order to be certified as a woman-owned business, the husband is really the person that has all the expertise, has the licensure, and then, it just on paper says that the wife is 51% owner. And so the regulations that we have to adhere to tell us that it must be real and substantial and continuing. So it can't just be on paper. The disadvantaged owners must be entitled to the profits and losses commensurate with the interest and interest. There must be substance proof to support this fact. Mere arrangements are not acceptable. If any term or practice results in a non-disadvantaged individual receiving priority or given superior rights to the firm's profits, is grounds for denial. And also in Arizona, since there are it's a community property state, a spousal renunciation statement is required to assert ownership stake in a firm. So these are things that when you apply for certification, we must review and we must make a determination based off of it. So we get a lot of, people sometimes, I feel like this is a good program or class for people to go through prior to applying for certification, because it gives you a lot of information about the things that we're required to look at before you submit your documentation. Now we're going to look at control, and only independent businesses may be certified as a DBE. They cannot rely on the relationship of any other firm for it to be in business. Basically, for example, you cannot say that you start a company, you're the owner, you're relying on equipment that doesn't belong to you and is owned by another company. So that means you're dependent on that company and its equipment. So, we have to question whether or not you're really in control of the firm. So when determining independence, we have to scrutinize the relationship you have with non-DBE firms. Like, are you co-located in an office with another firm? Do you have affiliations with other non-DBE and DBE firms? Do you currently have relationships or affiliations with non-DBE firms? Is the equipment ownership, salaries of owners and personnel, and relationships with prime contractors? Again, this happens. So, this is why we like to give you all of the information. We've had firms apply before, and they're located in another prime contractor's office. They don't have a lease, meaning they don't pay rent. So again, are you in control of your company, or is it just on paper? So these are just, again, things that we must review and look at before we make our determination. Another issue that arises frequently is the disadvantaged owner must hold the highest position in the company. It has to be, in control of the board of directors. The disadvantaged owner must control the day-to-day and long-term operations of the firm by direct or causing the direction of matters related to management, policy, operations, and personnel. Basically, this is what happens also. If you're in charge of your company, it can't be on paper. And we want to really stress this, because it's, sometimes people take it personally towards the certifying agency, and it's not personal. These are guidelines and rules we have to use. And if we, for example, if we come out and we talk to your staff and they tell us, oh, well, You know, I know we always ask Mr. Myers anytime we have any kind of problems day to day. So if Mr. Myers is not the disadvantaged owner, then, you know, again, is the person that you listed on the application really the owner, or are they just an owner on paper and they actually don't control what happens at the company? They're just on paper. So these are just, you know, all of the things that we must review and make sure are happening before you can be certified as a DBE. And the disadvantaged owner must have final say and ultimate control of all business functions. Again, you know, sometimes I've gone out and interviewed staff and they say, oh, well, no, we don't, for example, we don't ask her, we ask him. And so that's a red flag to us that the owner is not in control of the company. And I'm not gonna just read this slide. I'm gonna just tell you what it means. Basically, again, the owner must have an understanding. They must be able to run the business. You know, if again, this a lot of times it does not just happen when it's a husband or a wife. I mean, it happens sometimes. I've seen it happen with two people that own the company, and you know, one is the parent and one is, let's say, her daughter. Well, if she can't run the business without the help of another person, as far as the expertise goes, you know, then are they really in control of the firm? I mean, so again, we have to do our due diligence, and we just want to make sure that it's understood in these slides with all of the federal regulations that are being cited, that you have to demonstrate you are in control of the company. And if you can't demonstrate that, then these are reasons that we have to deny firms from being certified and approved. Some additional factors. If a state or local law requires a person to hold a particular license in order to control the business, the license must be held by the socially and economically disadvantaged individual. Sometimes if they have outside employment, for example, they work full time somewhere else and they're not even at the business day to day and in control of anything. It's a family owned business. Like I said, a husband and a wife, a brother and a sister, or even a wife and a son. So these things, again, they all affect us determining who's actually in control of the firm. And these, you know, we have all these examples because these things happen. If you have and it's not to say that if you have a full-time job, you couldn't have another business, but if someone else is running the business full-time and you're working somewhere else full-time, then you are not in control of the business. And if you, you know, let's say if your wife is an engineer and has a license and you don't have a license, then you have to get, you know, the other party would have to sign off on all of your paperwork, and that kind of, you know, makes them in more control than you would be. We have a small business concern, and that is if you know, whether or not you're going to become a certified DBE, but if you meet the SBA standard, you could be considered a small business and you can self-register through AZU Tracks, and that is a free certification. There's no charge for that. So to register for that, you just have to answer a few questions and enter your NAICS code so we can, enter you in the system correctly for what your firm scope of work is. And if you have any interest in that program, or if you've listened to all this information and now you know that you don't meet the DBE standard, you could register if you meet the criteria for a small business concern. And this is the program that we use in Arizona. The small business concern registration is easy. This is how you go in and apply. And I'm glad these slides, I didn't realize this was in here. So I'm glad the slide shows you like registration is simple and you can go in here and it's easy for you to navigate if you want to apply for that program. So again, just to cover the facts again, some of the facts, it's the responsibility of the applicant to demonstrate, prove by preponderance of the evidence that they meet the requirements to become DBE certified. We've gone over the socially and economically disadvantaged definition. And again, that is a federal regulation and a definition that comes from them. It's not, it is not made up by the Arizona DOT. And if your personal net worth is below 1.3 million and you must own 51% of the firm, you must control and have final say in all aspects of the firm, and your 3-year gross receipts of the business have to also not exceed the regulation cap. And actually, the regulation is now 26.89 million. It's on the other slide. I did not see that it was on this slide. So it's been increased. So basically, this program, has been around and not many changes have occurred, but recently they increased the business size standard. And we just like to give everybody all the information prior to applying for certification. And so throughout the process, cooperation is expected. So, and anytime you fail to cooperate with our request or information we request, documentation additionally that we ask for is grounds for denial or decertification. So it's best, like if we ask you for paperwork that you didn't submit and you have questions about it, it's best for you to send us a Q&A session so that we can, let you know why we ask for certain documentation. But you're not submitting the information is grounds for us to deny you. The DBE program is established to level the playing field for underrepresented firms in the transportation industry. It is not intended to be a program that promotes. Basically, this slide is just letting you know that it's just to offer in the transportation industry, companies that have been underrepresented the opportunity to get contracts and work on projects. And becoming a certified DBE is not a guarantee that you will be awarded or given work. And again, I've had this happen a lot. I've done these presentations in person in the past, but people think, well, they get certified and automatically they're just gonna start, getting contracts. It's still left up to you that, you have to get out there, and make your firm known, and the success counts, basically counts on you still doing your due diligence to obtain contracts and projects. So it's just not a guarantee, because sometimes people think once they get certified, people are going to start knocking on their door. So you still need to do the same thing you would do to be competitive, in the marketplace with your business. Again, this is the ACU tracks. system that we use for the DBE program. And it's really very easy to navigate. You know, it shows you right here, you can apply. You can go on here and search for other firms that are already certified. They have training modules now. So it's a very simple program. Is that my last slide? And that is my last slide. I think I went kind of swiftly, so does anyone have any questions? Oh, I see there's some information in the chat. Thank you.
I posted the link for the eligibility requirements.
Thank you.
And also the Appendix E for those who don't fall under the presumed category, and also for the NAICS, where to find the NAICS code for the North American Industry Classification System. Also a link where you can register for SBC, the Small Business Concern. And there's from our AZU Tracks website, our AZU Tracks website does have quick links where to apply for the city of Phoenix if you're within Maricopa County, for city of Tucson if the firm is within Pima County, and for ADOT if your firm is outside of Maricopa and outside of Pima County. If you're, as Kelly said, if your firm is also wanting AC DBE, then you would apply for the city of Phoenix. So I put all those links on there. So if anyone else has any questions.
Yes, if anybody has questions, we are here to answer them. I know it's a lot of information on the slides about the regulations, and I try not to spend just so much time reading off all of what the regulation says, and to give you examples, you know, of the questions that we typically get. But you can also review the regulations yourself. They're going to provide, I believe, the slides. I'm not sure. So you could, you know, just reference back to the slides if you want to. Okay, let's see. How long does it take to get certified? Well, according to the regulations, we have 90 days, but Amelia is so swift that it's normally 45 days or less.
Once all the documents have been submitted.
Right, once we receive everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kelly and Amelia, for your time. Let me see here. We do have a couple questions coming in, so that's wonderful. There is a question here about the recording being available for review, and the answer is yes. We'll send out the slides along with all this wonderful information that Amelia just shared in our post event email. So be on the lookout for that in the afternoon. We also got another question here. What are some of the common reasons for delays or denials?
You want to answer, Amelia? You want me to answer?
The most common reason is because they submit some of the documents and not all of the documents. So before you click submit, review your application and make sure that all the documents are uploaded. If there's a question on there for a required document that does not pertain to you or your firm, the system will let you just click not applicable. You have to upload something. So upload an explanation. Why doesn't this document apply to you? For instance, if you are a single person and one of the required documents is a spouse renunciation, well, that doesn't apply to you because you're not married. So upload a document with that explanation that you're not married, so therefore, you know, you're a single person, therefore it doesn't apply to you. But a simple explanation. But there's two sections. There's a mandatory document and a required document. The mandatory document is required for everybody. So you have to upload the document. So the required documents it depends on your company. So if your company is an say for instance, a sole proprietorship, then your company doesn't require you to have board meetings. So you don't have to submit the minute meetings because that doesn't apply to you because it's not applicable to sole proprietors. So just the biggest thing is just make sure that you have all the documents submitted. You know, if we review it and half the documents are missing, we're going to send the application back with the list of missing documents. So the delay is mostly incomplete applications. And just remember that the requirements that Kelly went over, you have to meet all of the requirements, not one, not two or three, but all of the requirements have to be met by the 51% or more owner of the business. So you have to have, the majority owner has to have the ownership, the control, be the disadvantaged person and have you can't go over the personal net worth limitation. So just review, and with those links that I had sent on there for the requirements, you know, take a little bit of time and look on there. And that link also has a blank application. If you're not quite ready to apply yet, but you want to see what's on the application, there's a blank application on there, and it is a universal application that's used throughout the United States. So we're not picking on just one person and they're asking for so much, but we ask this information from everybody for this program. So we make sure that only the people that fit the requirements are the ones that are DBE certified.
Correct. And Amelia, somebody's asking for you to reshare I think you attached the application website. And I'll go ahead and answer the next question. Somebody said, could you reshare the link to the application website?
Oh, sure.
And I'll go ahead and take the next question. It says, is the process for SBE and ACDBE similar to the DBE certification process? And that is yes. Although the DOTs, they don't certify ACDBEs, typically it's normally the local airport authority, or here it's the city of Phoenix. So the city of Phoenix are the ones that process ACDBE applications. The process is similar. I mean, basically the requirement nationwide, really, I believe it's 90 days. So that's, you know, but again, as Amelia said, that's given that you submitted all of your paperwork and all of your documentation. So sometimes that delays the process and extends the time because we need all of your paperwork and documentation. So when you're going back and forth with Q&As and they're asking for other paperwork, then that's gonna, you know, delay the 90 days. Now, we typically try to do it within 45 days, but I believe that the nationwide goal is 90 days. And as far as the process is the same, I mean, whether you're applying for sometimes local programs like SBEs, or, you know, depending on where you live, you know, MBEs and WBEs, but it's the same process typically. Same process, same application. So yes, the long answer to the question is yes, the process basically is the same. But sometimes I just want to throw out there that local municipalities, you know, may have other processes. And Amelia went ahead and attached the other links again. And I don't see any other questions. Me and Amelia are kind of doing a tag team, so.
Yeah, so appreciate that. Yeah, I also don't see any questions on the Q&A box either. So we'll make sure to share both your contact information with everyone in case there's someone who's a little shy this morning and is afraid to ask questions. So we'll make sure to share that, all these wonderful links that you're sharing, Amelia, to everyone, and the recording as well. So I think we could go ahead and wrap it up a little early, give some time back to everyone. And thank you again, Kelly and Amelia, for your time. We look forward to working with you in the future, and please make sure to join us in our next Getting to Contracts workshop series. We have 2 remaining courses left. And thank you again to APS for helping us bring these wonderful presentations to life. So make sure you join us next Tuesday for our next workshop. More details on our website, azhcc.com/events. So with that, thank you both so much, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.